What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Bad Religion. And we're going to listen to a tune from their 1985 EP, Back to the Known. I think I talked about this in a couple videos that were on my old channel and not yet on my new channel, and now my old channel's gone. So just to repeat, and I think to technically correct myself a little bit, we're going to listen to a tune, as I said, from the Back to the Known EP, here heard on the 1991 compilation 8085. For those of you who don't know, Bad Religion got started in 1980. They were all still in high school in Van Nuys. 1982, they put out their first proper studio album, which is How Could Hell Be Any Worse? A really cool album. They then put out a self-titled EP, which is also on this compilation. They then put out a second studio album called Into the Unknown. If you know this album, you'll know it was basically a prog rock record. There were lots of keyboards on it. It was a very different sound. I think it was primarily driven by Graffin, but ultimately it flopped and the band quickly sort of disowned it and wanted to get back to playing hardcore punk rock, so they put out the Back to the Known EP in 1985, which again, that's what we're going to hear here. And again, this compilation 8085, which I loved it when I found it because by then I had already heard Suffer, Against the Grain, or Suffer, No Control, Against the Grain, and I think Generator. And those have a much more polished sound. It was, that was what I knew Bad Religion to be. And then I heard 8085 and it was like, oh wow, so they had an earlier kind of like raw, almost like garage punk sort of sound phase. And I was like really intrigued by that. But yeah, the song we're going to listen to is called Yesterday. And it's interesting. I feel like this song, it looks at time both on a personal and sort of a larger level. It's basically saying, don't be anchored by your past, don't be sort of limited by it, but also don't be scared to look back at it, don't be scared to, remember where you came from. And then on a larger level, it's sort of speaking about like, is the future going to get worse, or has the future been rehearsed? Like there's a sort of a perception of time both forward and back on like a global or like species level scale, as well as like an individual scale. So yeah, I do remember it. It really fundamentally deals with time, and it uses the term yesterday, I think, as a sort of catch-all metaphor for anything in the past. And then sonically, it's interesting. It has more of like a peppy kind of like, it's not pop punk, and again, this is 85. I don't even think pop punk was actually like a term that people use, but it has a more kind of catchy sort of sound than a lot of Bad Religion tunes, certainly on this album, which again, it's very raw, it's kind of like gritty, garage punk sort of sound. But this one has a bit like brighter tune to it, and I remember seeing an interview with Gurwitz one time, and he was basically saying that one of his biggest musical influences was the Beatles, and that if Bad Religion made a Beatles tune, it would maybe sound something like Yesterday. So let's keep that in mind and get to it. This is from the 1991 compilation 8085, although originally from the 1985 Back to the Known EP, Yesterday by Bad Religion. Like Latin, like noun, adjective. It's like subtle but powerful guitar. The way we used to play yesterday, it just got worse and worse yesterday. The future's been rehearsed. like a real sort of like galloping rhythm to the tune. It's sort of like it's kind of hopping along. Luca is doing all sorts of like dream motions over here. But yeah, really cool tune, and again, a bit like brighter and sort of more catchy than most Bad Religion, certainly Bad Religion from this era.